glitches.
There you go.
There you
All
go.
right, so welcome everybody to our beautiful mountain community of Unity of Blairsville. But this morning on the Zoom connection, welcome to Unity from all over, wherever you're joining us from. How blessed we are. And we're joining as beloved companions, and we're joining in this beloved community. And so as we begin to settle in, whether it's with coffee or furry four-leggeds, just take some of those deep breaths, those deep cleansing breaths, honoring that breath of God as you, and then let music take you in deeper.
You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. So open your heart and listen. So open your heart and listen. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. So open your heart and listen. So open your heart and listen. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. You are welcome. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Pour your joy in me. Pour your joy into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Shine your light in me. Shine your light into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit. Sing your song in me. Sing your song into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Dance and smile in me. Dance and smile into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Whoa, wonderful Spirit. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself in me.
Deep breaths again. And all those wonderful visuals of spirit dancing in me, and that's in me and each of us. Laughing in us, shining in us. It all comes from that place first of deep listening, doesn't it? Which is what we began with. So let me read today's daily word because it is listen. I love it when those little synchronicities show up. In the quiet of my heart, I listen for the voice of spirit. And so we just begin from that place of deep listening. And whether it's today or during the course of a busy day, I may hear all kinds of things. Conversations, music, sounds from nature, traffic. And most usually my constant self-talk. Sometimes all that I'm hearing may numb me to the more intentional act of listening. As I listen, I become aware of the voice of spirit, though. Its comforting, guiding presence feels like a homecoming. As I settle into a tranquil environment and begin to relax my body and my mind, I create a welcoming space for listening to the assuring voice of spirit. That's what we're doing right here, right now. And that's discernible as my inner knowing. I breathe deeply and I rest in the space. I go about my day listening attentively for the voice of spirit, expressing all through the people in my life. And from Luke 11, verse 28, blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and obey it. And that word of God is love. So I don't know about you, but I am intentionally breathing the thought to hear and obey that word today, every single interaction that I have. So we join from that space. And Robbie, I've gotten a few messages from people saying that their picture has been muted by you. And I guess they would like to be on live. So if that's possible to not mess up the sound.
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, great.
So just a note to everybody, I manually stopped the video because of Wiley's music was cutting out. But go ahead and put your picture back on. If it looks like it's not making much difference, I can mute you and I can turn your video off, but you have to turn yourselves back on. And you can do that at any time.
All
Yeah.
right.
It's not working for me, just for the record. It's
Let me try that again.
Okay, it's still not working for someone, for Rick to put his picture back on. So,
Okay.
anyways, okay. I'm sure Robbie will keep working on that and hopefully it'll straighten out. If not, we know, there you are. All right, so I'm going to light the Christ candle here, and I'm lighting a different one today. This is a candle that I have of a lotus. And let me light it first, then I'll talk about it. I love this candle because the light shines through it, kind of like the light shines through each of us in our actions and how we show up in the world. And the lotus is such a beautiful flower. It brings me back to my days up in Maine where we would kayak on the river. And there'd be lotus blossoms everywhere out there floating in the river. And so it was just this place of incredible beauty. And the thing that's so special about the lotus is they grow in mud. And so what that says to me is that those experiences in our lives that may feel a little muddy, mucky, not showing up perfectly, like this morning kind of was a little mucky, muddy, getting everybody on. That's where this beautiful Christ light shines through, maybe the brightest, you all. It's easy to show up when we're feeling really great about ourselves, isn't it? And everything's working just the way we want it to. But to remember it in those other places, that's really special. And if we forget for a little while, as soon as we can come back, that's just as good. So that's the symbolism of this Christ candle this morning, and hopefully for you to take with you in your day. And I have a couple of announcements that we're going to do before we have another song. One is starting next week, you all, we're going to try something that I've decided to call Out of the Box Church. We're not going to have church on Sunday morning at 10:30 when we're competing with every other unity service on the planet practically. We're not competing, I don't like that word, but people have to make choices of where they want to show up. And so we're going to try for a couple months putting our service gathering like this at 5 o'clock on Sundays. Hopefully that won't conflict with too many football games, but that you will have a different choice to make later in the day. So maybe you'll have joined with another unity community or another community in the morning to start your day, and then kind of come to that place towards the end of Sunday to end your Sunday with another wonderful gathering of unity folks, and these being Unity of Blairsville folks to begin with. So that's going to be sent out this week. And if any of you aren't on our newsletter, please get that information to me or to Mary Ann so she can get that announcement out to you as a reminder, because until we start to remember it, it may take a little while to remember it. And then one more thing I'd like to say before we get into the message part of the service. When I was up in Maine, we had something in our community called the Good News. And that was that people would share from a place of principle, something that they had either done themselves that week, something that they had seen somebody else do. And those principles are that our first one is that God is all there is. It's in and through everything. And that each and every one of us are that living expression of that spirit. And so where have we seen someone or ourselves acting like that? And then the third and fourth principles are that we connect in with that energy through our prayers, through denials and affirmations, and through the words that we speak with each other. And then that fifth principle is always, we can know these, we can even have them memorized, but we have to practice them. We have to try our darndest to be vigilant and practicing them in all of our interactions throughout our day and our week. So that's the good news. And a little later in our service, when I have a time for sharing, I'm going to have a space where if any of you have thought of anything like that, to share or anything else from today's service, it would be a place to do that. But I'm just tickling you right now into thinking about that. And I would have to remind people that it was always a nugget share so that it wouldn't go on long and long and long and long, but it was just that little nugget of what you saw that just your heart went, oh, here's a God moment that's waking me up. So be thinking of that this morning and with your week. And now Wiley's going to take us in again to this next part of our service with a wonderful song that's new to me that Robbie and Wiley introduced to me, and it's called A Circle Chant. So enjoy.
In this circle, in this circle of love, in this circle of peace, in this circle of love, in this circle of peace, I feel our unity, love's sweet security. I feel our unity, love's sweet security in this circle of love, in this circle of peace, in this circle of love, in this circle of peace. I feel our unity, love's sweet security. I feel our unity, love's sweet security in this circle of love, in this circle of peace, in this circle of love, in this circle of peace. I feel our unity, love's sweet security. I feel our unity, love's sweet security in the circle of love, in this circle of love, in this circle of peace.
Thank you, my friend. Ooh, are you all leaning into that and breathing that and envisioning that circle of love, which always brings peace in our hearts? And that circle that we've created right here. But I'm envisioning it as a much bigger circle, a much bigger community. All the bigger communities that we're part of, the community of our country, the community of our world, all. What if we envisioned them all and lived them all as beloved communities of love, of peace? So we join from that beautiful message and that song and that image. And another unity minister that I used to hear, she used to always begin all of her prayers. There is nothing you could do to make God love you less. There is nothing you could ever say that would make God love you less. There's nothing. God just loves. this presence by whatever name, whether we call it living love, whether we call it God, whether we call it Muhammad, whether we call it Christ, whether we call it divine mind, that presence only loves. And so the quest is to bring our mind, heart, being into that consciousness more and more, where we can bring our mind, heart, beings into joining from that place when it's easy and when it's hard. It's all about us. God doesn't do anything but love. Make sense? Yeah. That's, when I first heard the unity principles, they were so warm and they made me feel so good. But there's a lot of responsibility with that second principle, that each of us are that living expression of God. Because then it becomes about each of us bringing that kind of essence to our gatherings, to our connections, to our relationships, more and more. And there's great responsibility in that. And for our world today, maybe that's the thought we want to wake up with every morning. How can I bring love into every place I join, every connection that I have? Because beloved companions, beloved community, God, each of us, it's all about that connection, isn't it? It's all about connection. And during this time of the pandemic, where so many of us are isolating and we're not meant to be alone. So bringing that kind of love connection, however we can, is just so important. And bringing that remembering. And we're all those beloveds. And so I was on the Zoom call this week with Course in Miracles from Unity of Blairsville. And one of the quotes she used that Mary used, I really love, because again, it's bringing this all together in the oneness. And this is Jesus, our way shower, speaking. And it says, the remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself. Ooh, breathe that in, you all. When you remember Jesus, when you remember the Christ, it's the remembrance of you. And then it goes on to say, remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and of him who sent me to you. So it's the remembrance of God also, the remembrance of living love, the remembrance, as Jesus used the term, our Father. There's no difference. God, Jesus the Christ, each of us, all in that oneness. Breathe that in. When I heard that quote, it took me into a deeper thinking about that oneness and how important it is to begin that honoring with ourselves, because we can only honor another to the degree that we honor ourselves. And from the Bible, it's love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor as yourself. It has to begin here, of remembering that oneness. Ooh, so I guess I hope you take that remembering with you out into your week this week. And when we were on our coffee community and conversation call this week, and again, I guess I'm putting a little plug in for our Wednesday gathering, that if you get our newsletter and want to join us for that time of community on Wednesdays at noon, we talk about spiritual principles. We talk about what we've encountered this week. We talk about the last Sunday message, or we've been talking about Jim Rosemurdy's class on the sacred human that we've been doing. But one of the things we talked about this past week in that time together was we talked about the story of Cain and Abel, because Reverend Jim had talked about it in his class. And I have to be honest, it's not a story I've sunk into a lot in my life as minister. But I looked it up more this week and I read it, and I actually reached out to Reverend Jim to make sure I was remembering it the way he spoke about it. And Cain and Abel, Cain stole Abel's birthright. They were brothers. And Cain murdered his brother. Now that's about as bad as you can get, isn't it? And in the scripture, God got pretty mad at him. I mean, in our human selves, we get pretty mad, don't we, when bad things happen on our human planet. But then at some point, he put the mark of Cain on him. Now, I wasn't real sure what that was, and it doesn't go into any great detail of what that looks like. But what it means is it's a mark of protection and love that God put on each of us. And he put it on Cain. And he put it on Cain when Cain had messed up. Hear that? So it's up to us to remember that mark of love and protection to surround ourselves with any way we may want to think about ourselves as less than that. And just remember, if Cain could murder his, and I don't take these stories literally, but if we did something really bad that felt like murdering, something, and yeah, in our human selves, we get upset. But then we come back to that place of remembering that living essence of God that moves in and through us all, that asks us to remember. Remember what you're made of. Remember the divine essence that you're imbued with. Remember the forgiveness you need to bring to all these experiences. You need to give love. That's all Jesus preached. That's all we're talking about here. Oh. And another quote that came to me this week when I was thinking about our time together is from Emmett Fox. And all these places where we might forget or be tempted to forget, all these things that we might label problems, Emmett says, they're simply signposts on the way to God. They're simply signposts on the way to remember. They're simply signposts on the way. Hey, can you reframe this a little bit differently and remember to bring love? Doesn't make anybody wrong, does it? There's no judgment there. In any way I can figure out not to bring judgment, because I don't know about you, but I've got a pretty strong judge in me, and I'm trying to love her too, bringing her to the table, but not let her be so in charge of things. So any of those places where I, you, we might be tempted to judge, can we remember? It's simply a signpost to remember God here. So I was thinking of examples of that that I've seen where people have remembered and people have forgotten. And I'll share a couple with you, and then maybe you all have one to share. And I have permission to share both of these. My older son, Todd, who's in recovery, solidly in recovery, but when he had a DUI that landed him in jail, he didn't want to live, you all. He totally forgot who he was. He totally forgot who he was. He felt separate. He was judging himself really harshly. He thought his life had ended. And he called me. And I started pointing him back to unity and people in his community there that were unity in this place of love. And they all gathered around him and were there for him. And so as he had to spend that short time that he had to spend in jail because of what he'd done, He brought that into the jail, into recovery meetings, that place of remembering, that place of community. And that's what we're all called to do, isn't it? In whatever those extreme situations are in our world. And you know, with what's going on politically in our world right now, I'm sure we can all find an extreme situation where we can remember. It's just a signpost to remember God, to remember love, to find peace in our hearts first, and then send that out to the world. And then this one is kind of a fun one for any of us that have been parents. First of all, I'll share it from the way I heard it, which was, it was a story about an African tribe. And when someone had messed up in their community, they would call everybody into circle. And they would put that person who had messed up in the middle of that circle. Now, your first thought might be they were going to chastise him about what he'd done wrong in community. But what they did was they told him all the good things they remembered about him. They reminded him of the truth of who he was. Pretty wonderful, isn't it? I did that a number of years ago when I was down in Florida, and I'd forgotten who I was. I was in a dark night of the soul. And I went back up to Maine, and for my birthday, I asked some people to gather around me and help me remember. And I thought they were going to tell me all these wonderful things about me. And out of this wonderful person's mouth came, Jesse, what are you most ashamed of? And so I told them. And then they all gathered around me and said, oh gosh, we've done something like that. They all made it a very sacred human experience of remembering. And then my friend Nancy Necco, who's on this call, she told me a story about a family. I love this. They were in the grocery store, and you've seen kids act up in the grocery store. I bet everybody on this call has seen a kid act up in the grocery store. And Nancy said she might have been tempted to take that kid out of the grocery store. How about you all? Throw them over the shoulder, let's get out of here. You know I've done that in a restaurant where one of mine, when they were little, acted up. You know what that family did? They gathered around that child, acting up, right there in the grocery store, and loved on that child. And the child settled down. It makes me cry. Such simple little experiences, places, if we can just remember. And the more we do that, we become the beloved companions then, don't we? That walk on this planet wherever we go. We become that consciousness wherever we go. And then we can form communities more and more that can join from that kind of consciousness. And then we can be that consciousness together when someone forgets. Maybe it's us forgetting. Maybe others will join around us. That's what we want. That's what beloved community is. And I'll tell you the definitions that I used last week because they bear repeating. They touch me deeply. And this is the definition from Jacob Watson around beloved community. And it is, this is my longing. And to see if it is yours as well, to belong to a community of souls where we feel safe and secure, able to be our true selves, our authentic selves, show our natural emotions, and live out our lives, not only free of judgments, but deliciously affirmed for being who we really are. Don't we all hunger for that? I know I do. And some of you were being that for me this morning when I was freaking out a little bit when the techie stuff wasn't working. And you all were telling me to breathe and telling me we have 5 minutes. This isn't World War III, Jesse. We'll figure this out. Any of you ever think every decision is life or death? That's a message I bring from childhood, and I'm trying to let it go and know that some aren't that, but I can still sink back into that. And it took some of you all to remind me. And then here's the other example. And this is by Martin, and I don't know that I pronounce his last name right, Martin Prechtel, and he's a shaman. People's longing for each other and for the terrain of home is so enormous. We need a waiting village of open-armed, laughing elders who know compassion and grasp the complexity of the spirit world well enough to catch us when we fall. Don't we want those around us? Well, our way shower Jesus was that, and I believe his teachings are calling each of us to become those laughing elders who know compassion and grasp the complexity of our world and are still willing to hold those arms out in welcome. We're being called to be those way showers today. And we do that, you know, how do we keep opening up to more of who we know we ourselves to be? In a simple way that came my way this week also, you know, do people hand you compliments sometimes? Or do you give compliments sometimes? And do people just kind of move past them real fast, like, oh yeah, that? What if we all took a moment to breathe it in? To really breathe in that honoring that we're either being given or we're giving to someone else. And to know that that expands our consciousness of knowing, yeah, that's who I am. Beloved companions, creating a beloved community in our world. And then my very favorite teaching, and if you've known me for any length of time, you've heard this before, but I go back to it. It's the 3 A's, and it's for those places where we forget who we are. And until we've forgotten and it's come to consciousness, we can't do anything about it, can we? So that first A is awareness. So we have to have an awareness of where we've forgotten God. So again, it's not a place to judge. It's just a place to open ourselves and, oh yeah, this is a signpost, a place I'm growing into, to remembering love here, to remembering the teachings here. And then the second A is we have to accept that about ourselves. We have to accept that we are these sacred human beings, and we do forget sometimes. And if you don't ever forget, you should definitely be the one giving the service here, because I forget all the time. But I am willing. Sometimes maybe I have to be nudged to be willing, to not point my finger and know that it's always about me first. If we're judging, it's about us, you all. It's pricked something in us. So we have to find that place of acceptance and forgiveness within us. And that's that second A. And then the last A is action. And this is the part that came to me this week. I'm not always sure what that action is. But this person that I was talking to this week, her name is Cooper, and she told me, she said, pick a higher thought. Pick a higher thought, Jesse. And sometimes it can't be, oh, I love this person wildly, or I'm really willing to love them. Sometimes it can just be a higher thought about myself, of the going, you know, I mean well most of the time. I mean well, or I care about people. Or I'm doing the best I can. Maybe this person is doing the best they can too. And maybe this is the way it looks this day. Maybe that third A, that action, is just picking a higher thought, which ups our vibration just that little bit to show up a little bit differently in our world. So, as I've shared here today, those are kind of my thoughts around beloved companions, beloved community. And we're going to have some more music and meditation, but I wonder if that has tickled in any of you a place that you'd like to share something of where you've been that, or where someone has been that for you, or has it touched anything in you that you would like to share in this part that I'm going to call the good news? A nugget? Okay, Colleen, you got to unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear that nugget. Whoop, you're still muted. Okay.
Yes, one of the things of the good news and one of the advantages of being on Zoom is in order for things to sink in for me is the ability to write them down. So I am a prolific note taker, and some of the things that you've said today have been such gems. I've been going back and forth just taking these absolutely wonderful notes. And for me, community like this, I'm my own worst critic, and I need to hear these things and really take them in daily, hourly practically. And I'm very fortunate, I guess. People do come to me to talk to me, and so I get to take in, and then I get to turn around and share, and perhaps lighten their burden. But a lot of it is just the flow of from here to there. So it's amazing. It's amazing. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Colleen, for sharing that. And the thing that I've been told over and over again during these years in ministry is how these stories in our humanity, which Reverend Jim calls the sacred human, and I've adopted because I loved it, how these stories of how we use these teachings through our humanity, because we can all read the books, but it's living them, and somehow stories stick with me the most. So thank you for that, Colleen. Anybody else? One more? Rick, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm also so glad that you introduced good news, because it's been a very long time since I've given good news. So I'll try to make this brief. For some of you know that I'm in a doctoral program, and I'm doing a dissertation on the caste system for India. And I'm specifically focusing on the lowest group of Indians, the untouchables, who come to America to escape the oppression of the caste system. And so I hired an editor in New York City to edit my dissertation before I sent it to my chair. And I had to call her 2 weeks later to find out how she was doing. And she goes, "Oh, yeah, you're going to have to keep on top of me. I've got a lot going on." I was like, "Okay." And she goes, "I don't mind if you do." I said, "Okay." So I call her 2 weeks later, and then she says, "Oh yeah, I've been trying to get in touch with you. I lost your dissertation. Could you send it to me again?" It's like a month later, and I just stood on principle, and I said, this isn't working for me, and I need to move on, and I wish you well. And so that day I put a call out to some colleagues for another editor, and I got connected up with a woman in California. So I made contact with her, and she said that she goes, "What are you doing?" I told her. She goes, "I did a movie on India, and I interviewed an untouchable family." And so she says, "I would love to work on your project. I would love to look at your manuscript." So it turned out that you know, this was something that you taught me years ago, Jesse, this or something better, or something better. And so I did get this. I got something better. And it was just so much more synchronicity and simpatico between me and this new person. So I do have to let go of the irritation from the first one and just say she was probably doing the best she could.
Oh, that's a great story, Rick. Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, it brings into play the other truth that we talk about so much about is divine order. You know, if we can remember that in the places that trigger us and where we get irritated, and we remember, wait a minute, this is a signpost to find God, and maybe there is something better coming my way as I surrender into it and do what's mine to do. So that's just a great story. Thank you. So these are the kind of nuggets I'm asking you all to look for and see during the week. And I'm going to mention this to our other presenters and see if they would be willing to do the good news as well when they're doing this Sunday morning. Because for me, it was always the highlight of our time together, or one of the highlights. Music is always another one. So let's take all of this wonderful wisdom that's been shared here, and this wonderful connection and this wonderful ideas around beloved. Remember, God said, "This is my beloved Son in who I am well pleased." And that beloved Son is each one of us. Each and every one of us is that divine idea. That's what Son means. That divine idea in the mind, heart of God. So let's begin to take all of these ideas into music and meditation.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
So we join in this field of only love. And we can picture the people that have been on our screen here this morning, but let's right this moment put each of ourselves right into the middle of that field. And then think of a time when you remembered who you were, where you just knew you were the expression of God. And bring that alive in you right now. And then maybe bring a family member, a friend, someone else that you love, and they've remembered with you together who they were. You've seen them knowing that they were that beloved as well. Bring that into this field right here, that memory as well. Beloveds of God, we need to anchor and strengthen those places of remembering. Can you feel it? Only love. There's only love.
There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
Now let's expand this circle, this field of consciousness, and bring someone into this field where maybe they've forgotten who they are. Maybe, just maybe you've forgotten a little bit with them of who they are. And then I ask you, are you willing or even willing to be willing to practice what we've been talking about right here and bring them into this consciousness where it brings alive that Course in Miracles quote that is one of my favorites. The holiest of all places on this earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. So bring someone into this field that's a stretch for you right now. Practice principle right now. I wonder how this practicing will influence each of us as we go forth in our week this week. I just wonder. One presence, one power, a field, a consciousness of beloveds, a community of beloveds of living love.
There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
And then let's just integrate all this for a moment or two, inviting this listening that we've done, this remembering of the oneness that we've done, just inviting it to be embodied in each of us in a little stronger way. Maybe with the idea of compassion. And strength. And as we do this, it can't help but make our daily walk a walk of joy and peace and grace and love, whatever name, with this intention to keep remembering over and over and over again, there is only love. And so it is.
There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
Deep breaths, you all. Bringing us back from that inner field to our outer time of connection. And a moment ago, as I opened my eyes and I looked up, and Ariel's kitty was licking her paws. And I thought of that, isn't that kind of like all of us cleansing our mind, heart, being, feet of understanding, hands of how we showed up, of remembering that there's only love. So I want to close with a poem by John O'Donohue, one of my favorites, and it's just a couple sections of it. And the poem was on failure. And so it's reminding us of those places where we may be tempted to think we haven't shown up the way we wanted. And now maybe we'll remember that it's only a signpost to grow our consciousness of God even bigger, of love even bigger. And he says, it kind of speaks to, though cruel now, it serves a deeper kindness, wise to the larger call of growth. It invites us to humility and the painstaking work of acceptance, so that one day we may look back in recognition and appreciation at the disappointment we now are being called to endure. Isn't that beautiful? Because it's that reminder of that sacred human walk and how we have to be called back over and over, or I do again, to this remembering. So I believe we're creating that beloved community to belong to, where we do feel safe to be our authentic selves. We're able to be our true self. That's the truth of our being. We're able to show our natural emotions and live out our lives not only free of judgments, but deliciously affirmed for who we really are. Envisioning each of us as becoming those laughing elders. I love it. So we sort of close with those talks, but I have a couple announcements that I would like to make. First of all, if you have been nourished by this time together, you know, if we were together in community, we would pass a basket, wouldn't we? And we'd hold that love offering in our hands and place it into the basket of love. And now, if we want to complete that circle of giving and receiving, we have the opportunity to give it through PayPal, or we have the opportunity to give it, to mail it in snail mail wise. And I always forget, I haven't written it down and I haven't said it enough lately. Louise, I know you know the offering blessing. Can you say it for us?
Divine love flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and I am grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. Always that place of gratitude. We are grateful, aren't we? And so if it's the snail mail way of sending it in, I'll say it to you slowly. I love our address. It's 298 School Circle, which means we're a learning place. And we're learning to be those beloveds together. Isn't that a great address? 298 School Circle, Blairsville, Georgia. 30512. So, and then the other reminder is, and we will be sending out announcements, special announcements, probably several, to help get this into our brains of the time change that we're going to hold this service at for the next couple months, and see if it works for you, and then see if it may work for a few more people to grow our community a little bit bigger. But our service next week will be at 5 p.m. And if you get our newsletter, there will be plenty of announcements in that as well. And Rick, I heard you say or no, somebody was saying to me this morning how much they enjoy our newsletter. And boy, we have to give Marianne big kudos for that. She does it every week. And I'll tell you, I think it's the favorite newsletter I've ever seen. So that will be coming out. And now let's close with another wonderful musical offering from Wiley, and then we can join together in community again afterwards if you want to share a little bit more. So Wiley, you're muted, honey. You can't have that.
Or actually, do you want the Michael Gott song?
Oh, I forgot.
Yes. So this is a video of our beloved Unity minister that Jesse and I love so very much. His name is Michael Gott, and this is called Spirit in Us. And Jesse, you and I should mute our mics.
Okay. Enjoy.
Now my hands do your work, and now my lips speak your truth. Now my life is the image of your love, Spirit, Spirit in me. Now my voice sings your song. Now my heart is at peace. Now my soul is the laughter of a child. Spirit, Spirit in me. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Now my hands do your work. Now my lips speak your truth. Now my life is the image of your love, Spirit, Spirit in me. Now my voice sings your song. Now my heart is at peace. And now my soul is the laughter of a child. Spirit, Spirit in me. And so it is. And so it is.
speak your truth. Now my life is the image of your love, Spirit, Spirit in me. Spirit, Spirit in me. Spirit in me.
Thank you. You know, when I have ideas for music, and then I ask Wiley, and we get together, and he has ideas for music, and I always think he can do any song, but he couldn't find the music to that one. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this feels like beloved community today. And I think Wiley or Robbie, you can probably end the recording here, and we can join for our community time for those of you that want to stay on the call, the Zoom